Welcome back, Rayton. In the last video, you learned about the different uh, types of plate boundaries base dun sa movements ng mga plates, no? So, when two plates are colliding or moving toward each other, then that plate is known as, or that boundary is known as the convergent boundary. Now, when two plates are moving away from each other, then that type of boundary is known as the divergent boundary. And when two plates slide past each other, that boundary is known as the transform plate or transform boundary. So this time we're going to test your knowledge about or your understanding about that. So I have here again the world map showing the directions of the plates or the major plates that we have in the world. So what I would like you to do is to identify kung anong klase ng boundary or plate boundary yung makikita ninyo based on the arrows. So the arrows show the movement of those plates. So for example, I have here the Australian plate. So you can see the direction of the Australian plate. It's moving downwards, while the African plate is moving upwards. So what do you think is the type of plate boundary that you can see here? So that's between Australian plate and African plate. So the answer would be, since they are moving away from each other, the answer would be a divergent boundary. So let us start. For the first um, plates or first set of plates, I would like you to identify the type of plate boundary between the North American plate. This is the North American plate and the Pacific plate on this part. So here, so what type of plate boundary can you see in this area? Very good. So if your answer is convergent boundary, then that's correct. So it's a convergent boundary. All right. So since the North American plate is moving towards that direction downwards and the Pacific plate is moving towards that direction or upwards, then they are colliding with each other, then that is a convergent boundary. So how about this time I will not be using my pointer anymore. How about still the North American plate and the Pacific plate? Okay, I will still use the pointer, the North American plate and the Pacific plate in this area. So what type of plate boundary can you see there? All right, so the answer is a transform plate boundary. So transform because the North American plate is moving downwards while the Pacific plate here is moving upwards. So they are sliding past each other. So that is a transform plate boundary. And just to give you a quick trivia, this area here is where you can see the San Andreas Fault. Okay, so kilala yon, nagginawan pa ng movie yon with Dwayne The Rock Johnson as the star mga years ago. Okay, so dyan po makikita yung San Andreas Fault. It's because of the movement of the Pacific plate and the North American plate in this area. How about for number 2? I will not be using my pointer anymore. I would like you to identify the plate boundary between the Antarctic plate and the Pacific plate. All right, so the answer is a divergent boundary because here's the Antarctic plate and here's the Pacific plate, and look at the directions of their movement. They are moving away from each other, therefore that is a divergent boundary. How about number 4, the Eurasian plate and the Indian plate? Okay, so the answer is a convergent boundary. So here's the Eurasian plate and here's the Indian plate. As you can see, the direction, no? They're moving toward each other. And yan yung sinasabi ko, yan yung malalaman nyo in the next lesson. There is a geologic process there na nangyari millions of years ago na na-form itong napakagandang scenery, no? Diyan sa area na yan. So you will learn that in the coming lessons. All right, so how about number 5? I want you to identify the plate boundary between, ito medyo mahirap to, hanapin nga ige, Nazca plate and Caucasus plate. Okay, so Nazca plate is here, while Caucasus plate is here. So Nazca plate is moving downwards, while Caucasus plate is moving upwards. Therefore, it's a divergent boundary because they're moving away from each other.